Hello and welcome to IT Coach for Growing Businesses with your host, Aaron Swan, VCIO at InfoSystems. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast, IT Coach for Small Business Leaders. Joining me today is the IT Coach, Aaron Swan. Hi, Aaron. Thank you for joining me. How are you doing?
Good morning, Danica. I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing good. I do want to mention before we get started here that due to the ongoing nature of the pandemic, we are still working remotely. So for those of you watching right now, you'll notice that we are recording over a Teams meeting. So with this comes some technical glitches at times. You might hear or see something a little funny. So we apologize in advance, but something we've all got to work through right now, isn't it? So with that, we're excited to be continuing on the series of answering questions from our listeners.
Yeah, and I'm excited. I will say this again. I'm excited to have Danica Veldkamp as our new co-host. This is our second episode together, and I think she's doing a great job of stepping into Josh's shoes. I noticed that you kept up the IT coach.
Yeah.
That's a Josh thing, which I just love so much.
That's a staple. He drilled that into me. He said, the IT coach. He is the IT coach.
I guess I'll own it.
Yeah. It's always good. So today's question is covering employees clicking on malicious emails. Specifically, when an employee clicks on a malicious email, how does that malware spread to other devices? What steps can you take to stop that spread? And how can you prepare ahead of time so the spread isn't so far reaching to the whole corporation and beyond?
Yeah, so this question was very well thought out and worded. I mean, they've really asked, or this listener has asked exactly the right question. So we'll just kind of break those down. So I think the first thing they ask is, how does it spread? Well, that depends on the specific malware, but some ways that it could spread. It can be a peer-to-peer thing. So if you think about in a business, all your computers are typically networked together, either through a wired network or through a wireless network. It's very possible for that malware to spread just through the network itself. It can spread by email. So it could be if you clicked on a malicious link or malicious email, that it could turn around and send more emails out to everyone in your contact list. So it could be spreading not just to your business, but to other businesses as well. It can spread across your network. It could spread up to your servers. And then in fact, those could go on to spread other ones. Could even spread through USB devices, the little USB keys we all plug into our computers from time to time. Malware can jump that way as well. So there's lots of different ways that it can spread. And it just depends on the specific malware that you've got.
Right.
Beyond that, then, go ahead.
I think especially now, this is a really great topic to talk about because with the recent pandemic, I guess it's still ongoing. We're dealing with the virus, right? So an analogy, could be that, you think about the virus and how it spreads. One click, one touch on something, right, can spread to a number of people, items. It even, I don't know if they thought about it spreading through the air, but you think about how the pandemic spreads. That's the exact same way that this malware can spread. I find that interesting to see real world examples.
Yeah, it's a great analogy. And then also, like the virus, not only does it spread, but it does damage, right? So in the case of COVID, we've seen the damage that it has caused in taking people's lives. In the computer world, the damage, there's lots of different ways that damage can manifest. It can be that it could be as benign, if you will, as just slowing your system down to a crawl. It could be that it's a lot more difficult. It could be that it clearly wipes your system out. Could be that it wipes out just the programs where they can't work. One of the most common things that's happening nowadays is that malware will actually go out and encrypt all your data files and then demand a ransom for them to be able to get that back. And they're actually asking people to pay in Bitcoin to get their data back. I get the question often is like, is that for real? Do they really give the data back if you pay it? The truth is they do, which might be surprising to some people, but that they want to have the reputation of having good customer service so that if someone pays that, they'll get their data back. Is that legal? Absolutely not. But it's very difficult for law enforcement to deal with because oftentimes these scams are being run from out of the country, so it's very difficult. So damage can vary from as benign as slowing your computer down to fully encrypting all your data.
And I think this is a great time to mention it is far better to be proactive than reactive. Can save
Absolutely.
you a ton of money, time, energy, and just negative ramifications in the long run.
Yeah, because being reactive, right? So that means it's already happened, right? So now we're dealing with remediation, and that could be ugly. That could mean reloading your system completely, which is just time and effort. It could be hopefully being able to restore the data that if you listen to other episodes, we hammer a lot on just how important backups are. So hopefully if you have gotten a malware infection, you were able to recover from it by restoring. Hopefully, your remediation isn't paying to get the data back, because that just helps exacerbate the problem, because as long as they keep getting money, this will keep being business, people will keep doing it. So remediation stuff. But as you said, and what I'd like to spend the majority of our time on today, it's about proactive or prevention. How do we stop this in the first place? And I think that was the heart of the questions that our listeners sent. So let's talk about prevention. We've talked about this before on the podcast, but security. First of all, let me say this again. It's one of my little favorite things to say about security. Security is a hassle, okay? It just is. And so some of the things I'm going to say, just like, wow, that's a hassle having to deal with that, or that costs money. Yeah, it does. That's true in every part of life. We have to spend money. We have to go through hassles to keep our homes secure. We'll go back to your analogy a moment ago of the COVID-19 virus. We're having to spend money and time and effort and wear masks and do all kinds of things and work from home. And it's a hassle. None of us like doing this, but the alternative is worse. Right. So we have to do these things. So in the IT world, let's talk about some of the layers that you should have in place to prevent infection. So first of all, this is the one I think people think of the most, but it's an absolute necessity. It's just having anti-malware software installed on all your endpoint devices. So that means every workstation, every server, every mobile device, all those should have anti-malware installed on them. It's not just the ones that access the internet that are vulnerable. All the computers are vulnerable because they're all connected together in some way. So make sure you have good anti-malware on there. If you need help picking that out, reach out to an IT professional, and they can help you find, because there's good anti-malware software and there's not so good anti-malware software out there. And so you want to get something that's going to be reliable and help keep you safe. So that's one layer. Another layer is protection at the edge of your network. So if you think about your network is typically connected to the internet, and so the edge there between your network and the internet, you should have a firewall in place there. That firewall is protecting against all types of internet threats, but that firewall should also have anti-malware protection on it. So hopefully you can stop it right there at the edge before it even gets to your PCs. I think it's a good idea to have that edge protection be from a different manufacturer or brand from the protection that's on your PCs. I think like there's some advantages to doing that, because people discover these new strains of viruses and malware at different times, and so if one doesn't catch it, the other one is more likely to. So I think there's something good to have some diversity in your protection there. Email defense. Sorry, you had a question there. Go ahead.
You mentioned the not good anti-malware security options. Are there any specific ones that you would steer companies away from, or specific ones maybe you'd steer them towards?
Yes, I'm probably not going to name names on the podcast. For one thing, I don't want to get sued. But I would encourage you to look. Microsoft has come a long way in building antivirus protection into the operating system. Used to that there was no antivirus protection built in. So I'll say positive things. They've come a long way in doing that. I would say you can do better by paying for additional protection. So I guess the best way I know to answer your question without getting us all sued is you get what you pay for. So free antivirus protection gets you free level of protection. So if you're not paying for it, whether because it's built in the OS or you've got one of the freeware AV programs, there's better systems out there. And yes, they cost some money, but they can pay for themselves in the protection they provide. Right. Let's talk about email defense, because email is another entry point into your network, and it should be guarded. So you will get some protection for your email through that protection that's installed on the computer, the antivirus that you have installed. You'll get some protection for your email through the edge network protection we talked about on your firewall. But there's another layer that you can do to protect your email, and that's actual email defense. Not only does it protect you against anti-malware, it does another thing, that's protect you against spam, which is something none of us like dealing with, getting just advertisement emails and things that we're not interested in buying. So good email defense software will protect you from both instances. And again, it's just another layer of protection that I consider a must that you ought to have in place. I recommend cloud-based email defense software. There's a couple of advantages to that. One is it's your email is passing through a protection software that's located off-site. It's not anywhere near your network. And so that remediation, that protection happens away from me, right? So if we learned anything from COVID-19, distancing, right? Distancing is good when you're dealing with viruses. So if I can get it away from me, I want to do that. The other advantage that cloud-based email defense brings is a lot of them have a feature called mail bagging, which can come into play. Let's say there's someone driving and they hit a telephone pole outside of your business, knock down your internet access. Now I can't get my email, right? That mail bagging software can actually hold my email, spool it for me until my email server's back up, and then send it on to me. So there's some advantages that I kind of consider that a bonus advantage in having that in place.
And I think this is a great time to mention Know Before training, which is actually a security awareness training for companies. And we actually offer that. Know Before is our technology partner, and we use it ourselves. InfoSystems uses it, and it tests employees, and it sends fake phishing campaigns to employees. Yeah. And if they do end up clicking on an email, it doesn't send them to a malicious site or doesn't download anything malicious, but it simply just says, okay, well, here's what happened. Here's a video as to how it happened, and for next time, what to look out for. I think those are absolutely brilliant. And I know Fred Cobb on the Cybersecurity Weekly podcast actually mentions it's it's hard to train the human. It is so crucial to train the human because a lot of the times malware comes in through what we're talking about today, that one click on an email.
Absolutely, could not agree with you more, Danica, about know before and end user training. I think end user training is your last and best defense against malware because everything else we put into place, think of it as an arms race, right? So the anti-malware people keep getting better and better protection, but the people that are putting out the malware keep getting better and better and sneakier about what they're putting out there. And so no computer system is 100% effective. So training your end users, training your employees is the absolute best defense that you can put into place. Know before is a product, and there's other ones out there as well, but InfoSystems, we use it ourselves, we resell it to our customers. I've had fantastic success with what it's done. I'll give you an example. We have a customer, as you mentioned, they have the fake phishing campaigns where we can simulate, and they have an amazing database of campaigns that you can send out that some of them are quite sneaky to try to trick users into falling for it. I don't feel bad about that because the bad guys are sneaky, right? My wife will tell you because I administer know before for one of my customers, and I had a little too much fun with it. It's just it's fun trying to find ways to trick people into clicking things. Again, don't feel bad about it because it's for their good. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you that this particular customer I'm thinking about, we did a baseline test with them when we first put Know Before in place. And so we're talking about this particular customer, I think, had about 470 users that were testing on this. 29% of them, 29% clicked on this, what would have been a malicious link that was simulated. Think about 29% of that many users. That's a bunch of people because all it takes is one person to click. So we did that. We did that campaign. We followed that up then with training videos. Their training is very interactive, so it's not just staring at a video. You have to get in there and click links and take little tests and play little games to try to simulate your knowledge on everything. We have dropped their phishing prone percentage from 29% down to under 1.5% in 6 months time. I'll tell you, it's something you got to keep in front of people though, because they forget. So we do a monthly phishing campaign just to remind people. We do a quarterly training campaign. Training doesn't take long. We're talking, 20, 30 minutes, someone sitting through these videos, but just you want to keep it top of mind because it really is the best defense that you can have in place.
It is, and I don't want to get too off topic here, but I will say I actually got one on the way to the airport. We're in a rush. My husband and I are rushing to the airport, and I got an email from our head of HR at InfoSystems. I think it was the day before the 4th of July or 2 days, and it said, "Hey, we're throwing a barbecue.
Yeah.
Do you want to come? Make sure to reply if you can or not." And I said, "Oh, I didn't know this was happening." So I click on it. And what do I know? It is a phishing email. And I was caught off guard, but that's good to mention. I mean, that's how it happens. That one click, we're caught off guard. They use emotions or just something or someone familiar. And it happens to all of us. So it's wonderful to keep that front and center.
Yeah. I think the example you gave is where when our guard is down, right? When you're rushing to the airport, you're just looking at the phones like, oh, well, what's this? And so it's good to keep that top of mind. Mm-hmm. I had one where I almost got caught on one of those. The campaign simulated an assignment, like I'd been given a ticket to work. And our system, we have ticketing systems that send out emails, and I knew that we just recently upgraded it. So I had to take a beat and kind of look at it and just say, wait a minute, I'm not sure this is legit. Turns out it wasn't. And that's one of the things that the training program covers. It it shows you how to look for red flags and how to differentiate and how to know whether something's legitimate or not, and what to do if you're still not sure.
Right. And one tip too for people, if you're unsure, is just like you were saying, just take a break, step back. And one thing you can always do, and I believe this has been talked about in other episodes too, is just to scroll over a link, or, you know, where it's coming from. Don't click, but it should pop up and you'll see where it's truly coming from. You'll see that. And usually if you see a HDQ17, that's not legit. It should be a trustworthy link. You'll see that. But that's one thing I could have easily done when I had gotten my email, and it would have saved me from making that or taking that click, or, you know, failing that email.
Yeah. Although we did miss seeing you at the 4th of July barbecue we had.
I know. I would have enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Well, Aaron, this has been very educational, a very good topic. Do you have any other comments that you want to make before we close off here?
I was thinking just one other story I'll share, and I think I may have on this podcast before, but I think it bears repeating. When you get into phishing campaigns and malware and kind of things, we talked about some of the damage. One of the other damages you can see is economic damage. One of the scams going on right now is just the idea of tricking employees into wiring money off to offsite companies, and that sounds far-fetched, but it happens. And I've seen one of my own customers that they actually got a phishing email. Their email defense software actually did its job and caught it. So it's sitting in their spam folder. They're looking at their quarantine and saw the email and thought, I think that is a legitimate email. They released it from quarantine and then saw the email. The email pretended to be from the CEO of the company. And so this is the CFO of the company that had done this. And so she's looking at the email. All the email said was like, hey, are you in the office today? Very innocuous. She replied to it and it's like, yeah, I'm here. What do you need? And that's when things started getting ugly. The purported CEO, really the bad guy, replied and said, well, you know, I'm working from home today. I'm very busy, so I can't be disturbed. Please don't call me or anything. But I need you to wire this money. I need you to wire $250,000 to this account number that I'm going to send you. And he sent all the routing information and everything. She had no reason to expect that wasn't true. She actually was preparing to do the wire transfer, and what saved her, she looked up. She has an office with a glass window in it. She looked through the window and saw the real CEO walk down the hallway, and then she knew at that moment that the whole thing was fraud. And so thankfully, she was saved from doing that. So again, I think that just reiterates how important end user training is, because the software did its job, right? It stopped this phishing campaign, but it was overridden by the user, and so it saved the day by her seeing him.
Wow. Well, I'm glad she didn't transfer that money. That would have, the ramifications of that, scary to think about.
Right.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that story. It's a good place to leave off, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for tuning in again today. We always appreciate you listening, and we always appreciate your feedback. If you have any questions, if you have any feedback, we are on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and you can comment on any post. You can message us. We're on there daily, and we're constantly monitoring. On some of these podcast blog pages, you will see a phone number that you can text. That texts directly to me. So if you have any feedback or questions, you can ask me specifically, and I can get back to you. So for next time, our next episode, we will be discussing web conferencing applications. you know, what we've learned over the years with Erin's expertise and the best tools that you can really use, especially as we're all still working remote. So we're excited to have you join us next time. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you later. Bye.